Good afternoon. Today I will be discussing hanging gardens in southeastern Utah. These gardens are critical habitats that need to be addressed and need to be protected in certain ways. They are a very important natural resource for the people of the Southwest, for the animals, for the birds, and for other like deities and animal like insects and little birds. This is a massive bedded bluff sandstone that you see above the gardens. At the knit points where there's like an overhang or is where the lithology changes in the bluff sandstone from a more massive bedded aeolian deposit sandstone to like a more of a siltstone inner bed where there's a zone of weakness. And these zones of weakness is where the sandstones will tend to weather out a lot quicker. And they tend to form these overhangs where you get these gardens that form in the recesses of these overhangs. And there are many types of gardens. This is one type that I would call like a massive interval type of garden. This will later on form into probably what you would call like a very nice alcove type of garden where you have like a huge amphitheater with a grotto and a nice curvature back wall. I'm going to discuss the importance of the gardens based on how it's critical to like extensive damage based on climate change, based on the natural geologic host rock that forms zones of weaknesses where they can cave over and destroy these gardens just based on how these gardens dry out. And also a critical factor is how humans have come to these gardens and have really impacted these gardens, taking like the specific garden plants right below the toe of the gardens, right where you have these like really nice plants that they want to transport and maybe transplant into their own gardens at home. On this side of the garden, it's a little bit more well protected by these Russian olive that are kind of growing out extensively at the base of the gardens. You can see the garden somewhat still intact here. There's not a whole lot of vegetation that has been removed. You can see the toe vegetation, which comprises mainly of Primula speciicola, and then Aquilegia micrantha, some Enothera longissima. Then if you look up into the back recesses of the walls, right where that grayish green spot of Primula speciicola, that's the last part where the primula will be able to hold on to. And then up on top, you have these hanging plants, these clingers. And up on top of these clingers, you have like a maidenhair fern, Adiatum Cablis veneris, and then also Mimulus Esuidia, Eastwood's monkey flower. So these monkey flowers will flower out later on. They'll be all bright red in color. It forms a really neat reddish patch right up on top here when you look all the way across this garden here. And then you can't see it very well, but there's up on top of the gardens, you have water that's dripping on down. I think there's some residual snow up on top, and also from this second tier of gardens. This is like a multi-step garden. There's like 3 gardens in this rock wall. You can see the little overhang above, and that's where some of the water is dripping down. And then down below, you see some of the ice that has formed on the branchlets of the Russian olive. And then this I've never seen before, which is really neat to be here at this time of the year, because there's a nice little pool down below that it created. So this is probably what's drawing in all the cattle that's been coming into here to get their water from. And you can see right where I'm standing, right below me, in the shadow, you can see how extensively the cattle have really did damage to the bottom part of these gardens. So that's another big major concern. And somehow they need to be controlled and maybe even to be left out. And this garden might need to be fenced off so they can be left out of here. These gardens are I believe, they're what I would call glacial relics. They formed right after or during the time of the mountain glaciation that was going on around the north of the Durango area in the San Juan Mountains. And these species that you find here, the genus that you find here, like Primulas and Enotheras and Aquilegias and Carex and Uh, there's like a species called Hutchinsia. All of these species, when you look like 15 feet away from the gardens, is all pretty much desert country. There's no vegetation or no genus that comes from anywhere else, like from these deserts. These genus they come from very high up in the mountains, like up in the high like the coniferous forest leading up into the subalpine to the alpine communities of Colorado, and they formed during the last glacial ice age. And when these plants they travel down the San Juan River, which is situated to the south of here, like about a mile, and these plants they found these cool recesses where you had like a little bit of moisture that was issuing out of the walls, and that in turn kind of like created this habitat for these hanging garden plants. And once they got established, they were left behind. Once the mountain glaciation went back up into the mountains and it ended, these plants got left behind, and they had to adapt to this new type of environment. And so their adaptation also entails like different types of pollinators. The pollinators that I've seen in these gardens are like little tiny ants, like black Mycomyrmex and like Nevermyrmex and other species of ants. They're also pollinated by spiders, different species of spiders. You'll see spiders crawling around these back walls and onto these plants, and from one plant to another. And then the wind itself is also a pollinator. It'll come swirling it around into these gardens and creating these like kind of like an oval depression. It kind of forms the gardens themselves. You know how the gardens are undercut by the wind and also by gravity. And like I said earlier, the lower formation is like a zone of weakness where this garden starts eating into, or the overhang starts eating into. And right where I talked about the water dripping down up above, if you have very good extensive snowfall, like especially heavy wet snow, it'll accumulate up on top, and then it'll come and travel down these joints of fractures in the rocks, these faults in the rocks, and it creates like a reservoir right where the lithology changes, as you can see over in the gardens over here, right where the rock changes from white to reddish color. The reddish color is not very permeable, and the white sandstones is very permeable where it'll absorb water readily. And in the reddish colored siltstone unit, it forms what we call an aquiclude. An aquiclude would be like a barrier for the water to further travel downward. So the water, it gets trapped on top of these aquicludes, and then it'll just start forming like reservoirs inside these permeable sandstones. And then once it starts to grow and it starts to fill up with water, the water will start traveling laterally. And once they start traveling laterally, they'll hit these areas of walls where there's open walls, and then it'll start dripping out from there. It'll start creating these little seeps and these little drip lines and so forth coming out of the back sides of these walls. And right here it's kind of dry, but you can kind of see later on if there's more water, that will be more of a drip line right there where the primula ends and where the monkey flowers, the mamula, starts at. So that's kind of like a mechanism as to how these gardens work. And once these gardens they dry out, and you can see up above there's like these where it flakes off, those will flake off and continue to flake off until it undercuts a joint, or where gravity will take over, and this whole garden will just kind of crash in on itself and then destroy the garden itself. So it's not only is it critically unstable based on human intervention, human action by livestock that the humans bring in, it also by the geology itself, you know, the unstable nature of the rock type that it forms in. Like I mentioned earlier, all these plants are used in the Navajo Winway chant. That's the name of the chant. And these gardens, they're homes to the holy wind people that live inside these recesses, and so that's why therefore these plants are used as tobaccos, as medicinal plants, and also as ceremonial plants for the Navajo Winway chant. And then up on the back walls, you can see this massive bedded Aeolian deposited bluff sandstone of Jurassic age. And inside these walls is a deity that we call the humpback gods. That's very important to the Navajo teachings of the Nightway chant. And also is a deity for Navajo botany. And earlier I drew a rendition of the humpback god. So that's the rendition of the humpback god that lives in these massive rock walls. And it's a polymorphic entity with part human, part holy people, part desert bighorn, and that's why it has horns up on top. The basket that it wears up on top of its head is like a crown, an inverted crown where you have like it's a crown of weather, and the horns itself is a very powerful symbol where it represents these clouds that form during the monsoons. When they start building up, you get these huge clouds that go up into the sky, like about 30,000-40,000 feet, and those are the horns that's represented by that. On top of the basket crown, there's what you see, those black appendages. Those are black woodpecker feathers, and those represent like a rainfall right after a rain, when the clouds kind of open up. You get these narrow sunbeams that come through the clouds. And then that's what these narrow sunbeams are represented by, the woodpecker feathers. And then the basket has a white zigzag line and totally black in color. And the white zigzag lines, they represent like chain lightning between clouds at night. You know, when you have one rain cloud adjacent to another rain cloud, and sometimes you'll see the lightning jump between the two clouds, and so that's what that represents. Then on the back of the humpback god, you see a rainbow, which is a color of black and then green in the middle. And then within that, on top of that, is are eagle feathers. These eagle feathers, they represent the early morning sun rays, right at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning before the sun comes out. You'll see sun rays coming out of the eastern horizon. And then inside the rainbow is a black bag, like a backpack with white bars. It's all black with white bars. The black represents darkness, like dark clouds, and so the white bars, they represent all types of atmospheric precipitation, like male rain, female rain, hail, dew, sleet, mist, snow, and so forth. So it represents all kinds of precipitation. And within this flat bag, you see there's all kinds of vegetation, the seeds of vegetation, like flowering plants, like grass seeds and seeds of shrubs, and also of trees. And so the seeds are mixed in with all that precipitation. And so during the coldest parts of winter, when you have extensive cover of fog, these humpback gods would come out in large numbers, and they would walk around and say, "Oh woo," shaking their back, "Oh woo." As they shake their back, the seeds would come fall on out, and then this figure that you see to the right side of this image is like a planting stick, and they would dance around in a circle, and they would use that stick to press the seeds back into the ground. So by the time the spring comes around, you'll see miraculously the vegetation that has been restored. So this is our deity for botany, for replanting the earth. And it's also a very important deity, the 9-day, 9-night Nightway chant, where all the ceremonial rites, the sand paintings, come from this deity here. And this deity has home right down in bluff, going down into the San Juan River, following the San Juan River to the convergence of the San Juan and the Colorado River on the north side of Navajo Mountain, and it continues down to Marble Canyon, to the Grand Canyon. And they say that he used its horns to create the Grand Canyon, the drainage system of the Grand Canyon itself. So these gardens are very important. Not only are they important to our holy plant people, our holy deities, but they're also important to the vegetation that it hosts, and also to the moisture that it brings. The moisture provides some moisture for little animals, like little reptiles and little mammals, and also it provides an important refuge for birds, and like water for birds, seeds for ants, and the seeds for food for lizards and other reptiles. So that will be my ending for this presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.